Jenna, thank you so much for joining us today. For those who don't know you, can you share a little bit about your background and what inspired you to focus on the immune system and aging?
Oh, it was great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Where did it start? I'm not sure. It was kind of serendipitous. So I'm from Scotland. I grew up in a tiny farm. And I guess on a farm, you see the circle of life. And it was a very specific way of life growing up. And I was really curious as a child about humans and health and disease. I can't really explain it, but I just followed that curiosity. And then when I left school, I discovered immunology, which was a really unusual course at the medical school at Glasgow University. And when I started to explore going there to study, it kind of just made sense. It was like, this is the field of study that's going to give me all these answers about why humans get sick, what makes us healthy. So it was kind of just following my interests, I guess, from a young age. And then I was hooked on the subject. And it's, most people that study immunology go and specialize in an area like rheumatology or allergy. And I kind of just wanted to keep it really broad because I just felt like that was what was missing in health and wellness, because the immune system is not in any specific place in the body. Like I could probably ask you to locate your digestive system or your respiratory system, but your immune system, you couldn't say where it is because it's everywhere. Yeah. So it touches all the other systems. And I like to call it the wellness system because it's really keeping everything else in check. It's keeping you well. And it's really collaborative with your brain and your cognitive system, because they have to work together to calibrate the health of you as a whole being. So I've just kind of like explored all the things I'm interested in and luckily managed to make a career out of it at the same time.
Amazing. So you've just released your third book, Immune to Age. Can you tell us how important the immune system is in the aging process? Kind of break down what you want readers to take from your book.
I think recently I said something like, I'm the anti-Brian Johnson.
Yeah, I love that.
You actually said that to me, didn't you? Like, I love that.
Total respect to Brian, by the way, and what he's doing. But I wanted to bring like a different lens to life course health. In science, we have all these amazing studies that usually are just a snapshot in time. So, in males aged 25 to 35, for 8 weeks after taking some intervention, we saw these changes. Like, how applicable is that to a woman who's 45? Like, we don't have these long-term chronological studies because they're really expensive to do. So it means that the data that we've got to work with is kind of limiting. And what I started to explore in my own personal life, having a midlife crisis, was also like that sense of like my own mortality. And I feel like age 40 is kind of a tipping point where, for most of our evolution, all of our genes, our physiology was optimized to passing on our genes to the next generation. So evolution optimized us to have children and then die, and it doesn't really care about what happens next. So 40 is kind of like this threshold where your biology kind of works against you and you need to kind of take a bit more care, because while you're 25 and you can stay up to 3 a.m, get really drunk and then go to work and function like a normal human being, I certainly can't do that now. So it's kind of like, evolution optimized us not to live till we're 80, but now we have the medicines, the public health, everything that allows us to live till we're 80. And so I just kind of wanted to look at health across the life course, but I guess I wanted to bring a different lens to what we see in sort of current wellness narratives, which, although I have so much respect for the science and like the world of biohacking and everything, it felt quite masculine and quite clinical. And because I was going through all these changes in my personal life, I kind of wanted to bring a more soulful lens to things. So kind of viewing the weird relationship we have with time. I live in Brighton. I've got, friends that live 2 streets away from me. But whenever I want to see them, it's like 6 weeks in advance because everyone's time poor. Time is like the most used word in the English language.
Is it?
Yeah, which is really weird. We say it all the time, oh, I've got no time, or I'll have to check the time. What's the time? Like, we have this weird obsession with time, but we actually have had a bit of a longevity revolution already, even though we're sort of speak about it as if it's still to come, in that, you know, like our great grandparents, like the lifespan would have been, you know, 40, 50 years old if you had good innings. And now in the UK it's 80, but the health span is 60. So there's like a 20-year delta where, you know, we can keep you alive, but it's a slow death. So we need to, and I just feel like the roots of that are in our early decades. And I don't really mean that to scare people, because you'd be like, oh no, I can't undo what I did in my 20s and 30s. But more like to kind of instigate a change in that, you know, the older generations have the wisdom to pass on and say, look what you're doing with the kids, because their health trajectory is now already on a bad course and it's really hard to course correct later in life. Like, let's make changes now and let's not let this happen. Instead of going, oh, they're just kids, it doesn't matter if they like eat loads of sugar and watch TV all day. You know, it's like, no, the habits, the normalization of what they should be eating, like that has to come now, because like, when they're 25, like that's much harder to break when it's like ingrained into them.
And I think we've got it coming from all angles now, haven't we, as well? You know, the toxins are everywhere, whether that be pesticides, plastic, we can't escape it. Whereas I feel like our generation, we didn't have the same exposure, and we were almost like the experimental age, and we were exposed to, the foods were different, but I feel like this is now the generation where it's showing. You know, completely. In the children, isn't, you know. So.
Yeah, there was a recent study that showed that like my parents' generation, so I'm like a elder millennial, I think, but like next, they're like the healthiest because they grew up mostly in that kind of post-war Britain where things were scarce, so you were resourceful, you ate really well because you'd like spin meals out with like extra,
and eat nose to tail, and
all of that, and they didn't have like processed food and takeaways and everything, but they also benefited from public health measures like quit smoking and don't do really dangerous jobs and like health and safety and like all of those different things. So they've kind of really benefited from that. But then my generation, it's like slightly gone the other way, because I remember, you know, must have been in the late 80s, early 90s, I was kind of sheltered from it because I grew up on a farm, but like the nearby town got a McDonald's, and this was like, wow, you know.
Well, it was trendy then as well, wasn't it? I remember my mum saying like boxed food became trendy. It was cool to have a microwave and all these things. And,
they were literally like marketing to mums, like, you know, this is going to make your life easy, and planting that narrative of like, you know, at the same time women were progressing in work, so it was more of a juggle, and like all of these weird things sort of happening. But so we probably were all like similar age, but we had that early life part without all the, you know, the TV channels, the devices, the ultra processed food. But our kids now, and we all have children, like, you know how hard it is to protect them from that world, because it's coming at your door with the marketing, with the aggressive, like, you know, trying to get your kids into that, and you have to. It's like a fish swimming upstream.
It's really hard.
It's really hard.
I think with social media, though, it's getting easier. I feel like education is, you know.
You can find your tribe, and the social pressures, I think, as a parent is particularly hard. Because if everyone's doing a certain thing, and then your kids are like, why don't I have a mobile phone? Why don't you take me to McDonald's? Like, why? Then you've got like that added thing where your kid's like not normal. And I guess for young teenagers and kids, you want to fit in and belong. So with, you know.
So how do you deal with that with your kids?
I think I just didn't yield from a really early age.
Okay.
And so they are in like a mainstream school and everything, but now they'll be like where we live in Hove, and there's like a Burger King by Hove Park, and they'll be like, that smells so disgusting, mummy. Like, I don't want that. And there'll be like a birthday party, and, you know, I will just let them have what they want to eat, but they will be like, so we had this thing called Domino's. It was so disgusting. I'm never eating that again.
Amazing.
So then you're like, you know, if you help them acquire tastes for foods that is real from a really young age, then they're going to taste these other things and be like, okay, that might hit a certain sort of bliss point, but I don't want to eat it all the time. And alongside, I've just tried to gently kind of steer them into why we don't have those things. And sometimes they will like get really annoyed and stuff, but I've always thought, you know, I can't control the food environment outside the home, but I will control it inside the home. And I'm not going to spend money on stuff that I don't want in my house, you know, because those companies don't care about your health. They just want your money.
That is so true. So, Jenna, what are the biggest lifestyle habits that age our immune system prematurely?
So I think like the biggest one, well, there's a few. So I think exercise is so important. So one of the ways, or there's two ways that your immune system is kind of the rate limiting factor in your health span. And one of those is this gland in your neck called the thymus gland, which produces immune cells called T cells. And T cells are kind of like the master controllers of your immune system. So they're really, really important. And the thymus gland actually peaks about maybe in your early to mid 20s. And then it does this process, what we call involution, which basically turns into a fatty mass. Oh. So you're peak.
I didn't know that.
I know, it sounds disgusting.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got this like peak thymus health, you know, in your 20s. And then it just like, your body's kind of like, oh, we don't need this anymore. And so again, it's just because for most of evolution, we didn't live that long. So it wasn't necessary, and your body's not going to keep things that it doesn't need. But it means that you stop producing fresh new T cells. And these T cells can either be the ones that deal with infection, but they also are the ones that regulate things, and they stop unwanted inflammation and things like that. So you have this thymic involution happening. And then the other process by which the immune system kind of limits your health span is aging. And that's this unwanted inflammation, which is one of the defense mechanisms your immune system has. So if you have ever had a cold or a flu, you get a fever, you feel poorly, that's because you've got inflammation fighting the infection. But sometimes we'll get this low level unwanted inflammation, which over time will sort of age the system. So sort of like your car rusting over time. So we have these two processes happening. And I would say that if we want to tackle both of those, one of the best things you can do is exercise, because we know there's this amazing study by Professor Janet Lord at Birmingham University, where they looked at cyclists that were really active in their 70s and 80s. And because they'd always been cycling, they maintained their muscle mass, their cardiovascular fitness, and they looked at their thymus gland compared to some sedentary, like 30-year-olds. And they found that because of the physical activity that these cyclists had done throughout their life course, they held on to more of that thymic function over time. Amazing. But when you are really sedentary, that thymus is going to shrink and involute much quicker. Oh. So it's really, and then it comes to your life course. Like, it's never too late to start exercising. But if you're a child that isn't shown that you are supposed to move around and be physically active, and you live quite a sedentary life, then you're shortening that immune health age really quickly. And then by the time you're in your 40s, 50s, some of that might not be able to be undone. And then the other thing exercise does is that it is itself inflammatory. So when you have a gym session, you will get a spike in inflammation. But that's a sort of healthy, controlled inflammation that your body's prepared for. And then it has this even greater anti-inflammatory spike, where it switches on all these anti-inflammatory genes, lots of antioxidants, and it sort of mops up not only the inflammation from the exercise, but all the unwanted inflammation that can cause aging as well. So you get this kind of double thing happening.
What exercise do you like doing?
What do I do?
What exercise do you like doing?
Oh, so I have I've had the same routine for ages.
Have you? You like jiu-jitsu, don't you?
I do jiu-jitsu. Yeah, that's like my favorite thing. Oh my God, I went last night. I'm a little bit bruised. Not gonna lie. So I do jiu-jitsu. I try and do that like 3 times a week because it's so addictive, and I'm still shit. So and then do you know what? I do one gym session a week, and I've done that, and I work out with a PT. He's a really good friend of mine, and we've worked out together for 8 years. So ever since I've lived in Brighton, I actually trained as a PT many years ago. So after I had my kids, they were born in Zurich, and I was like, oh my God, I can't go back to work like as a mom. It just felt too overwhelming. I was like, I'm just going to train as a PT, because I wanted to know how to get back in shape as a mom, and so I specialized in sort of postnatal fitness. But then I just haven't really kept it up. So I'd rather, but what I find is if I do one session a week with a PT, and we do about an hour and a half, and I'm like, we're going fucking hard because this is the only time I've got. Weights, calisthenics, sometimes we do really heavy lifting. We do all sorts of really functional stuff, like animal flow. Sometimes we play games. He's got a really kind of, he just understands what I want from, shout out to Henry. But that to me has done more for my fitness than if I was to go to the gym 5 days a week on my own. Like, I just think I won't push myself as much. Like, I'll find ways to like cut the session short because you've always got stuff to do, especially as a working mum. So
I always find it so much. I always push myself so much harder when I'm with someone else in the gym.
Exactly. You've got a friend or someone like partner that you train with. So I always say to people, like, you know, you don't have to do what I do, but if you are going to pay for a gym, do like 1 or 2 really good sessions with a PT rather than like go every day on your own and don't see any progress for 6 months. So that's been locked in my diary for like 8 years. It's like,
amazing.
It's in there. Like, I can't
the fact
book
it's
anything
scheduled
around
in as well, and you have to meet someone. That probably makes a
and then I
difference
love
as well.
my little seafront runs in Brighton. So I get out whenever I can. But I don't really run far. Like, I'll do maximum 10 kilometers, but sometimes it's 5. Depends on time and the kids. I'll just get up early and do that. And that's like my little routine. I've just been doing it for ages and it hasn't really changed, but it's kept my fitness at a level where I just feel good. And I know I could ramp it up if I want, if I've got more time, or there's weeks when I'm really busy and I can't make it. And when you have a really good baseline, it doesn't really matter. Like, you don't have to feel bad about missing a week of anything, because you're like, oh, I'll just get back on the path.
Just a quick pause to tell you about Happy Mammoth. If there's one thing we're all craving, it's true relaxation, especially as women and mums balancing a million things at once. At Raise, we're all about supporting women to feel more grounded and well, and that's exactly what Happy Mammoth is here to do too.
We're always on the hunt for the real secrets to better energy, deeper rest, and that sense of calm that lasts. And these 2 products are too good not to share: Magnesium Breakthrough and Deep Sleep Mode.
Magnesium Breakthrough is a unique formula combining 5 highly bioavailable forms of magnesium, plus a special activator to help your body absorb it properly. It's designed to ease, relax your nervous system, and support sleep and hormone health without any fillers or fluff.
Then there's Deep Sleep Mode, your nighttime wind-down ritual in a bottle. It blends magnesium glycinate with calming ingredients like reishi, GABA, valerian root, and L-theanine to help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up feeling restored.
If better sleep and deeper calm have been on your wish list, this is your sign.
And right now, you can get 15% off your first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code RAISE at checkout, and you deserve to feel like yourself again.
So exercise then is the best
thing.
Anti-aging,
I would say. And then the next thing I would say, like, usually we kind of default to like diet and supplements, but do you know what? When I started writing this book, it was sort of my midlife crisis moment and this weird fascination with the human relationship with time. And I just kind of realized that, you know, our perception of time can change depending on what we're doing. Like, time, people say all the time, well, time is flying, it goes so quickly. As a parent, we say it about our kids growing up. And like, I realized that, you know, life isn't like an A to B journey. Like, you know, we don't listen to a piece of music to get to the last note. We're always kind of striving for something, optimizing for something, going somewhere, doing something. And I was like, I just need to drop in more. Like, I just need to be present in my life, like sit here in the middle of my life. I just got really into meditation, and it got me through such a difficult part of my life, just sitting in my garden, meditating with my cats. And I think one of the side effects from that, like, I was the person who couldn't meditate until I couldn't not meditate.
Okay.
And like, one of the side effects was just not only your perception of time changes, but your capacity really grows, and you don't feel so razor down, and you don't feel like the world is sort of shrinking around you. You have more mental space, which then physically gives you more capacity. So you kind of can do things in a way where you don't feel tired all the time. It's kind of hard to describe.
And it's strange how that's often, I find, is pushed to the bottom, isn't it? Like meditation's like,
exactly. I even had a conversation yesterday in an interview, and somebody asked me like, oh, but what about all the busy people that say they can't meditate because they're too busy? And I was like, get them to open their phone and show me how many hours they scrolled mindlessly on stuff that wasn't helping their life, and then tell me they can't do 10 minutes of meditation.
Even if you do it before bed, like you can do when you're winding down. Do you do guided meditations? Or
that's kind of how I started, because I really struggled to meditate, and I just would find people on like the Calm app that I liked, and then it was almost like scheduling it in, like, oh, it's, you know, it's first thing in the morning when I wake up and I'm just, you know, sitting in the garden enjoying the stillness before the kids, then open the app and do 10 minutes, and it's like kind of building that habit and routine so that then you don't have to think about it. And then when you miss it, you're like, it's like you haven't brushed your teeth. You're like, oh, something's not right. I need to do that. And to be honest, if I'm really stressed, I probably would never meditate, because
I think, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like probably when you need it most, you actually probably push it back
away
until you have more time to actually sit with yourself. I think I do that.
And which is annoying.
Which is really annoying. It's like, what?
But then if you do it really consistently every day when you don't need it, I feel like that's the kind of like...
I think scheduling it in is the secret, isn't it? And I think that's the same with everything. It's making that space in your diary for it, because there's always going to be excuses otherwise,
it's always going to be.
So you mentioned about exercise being a habit that would help. What are the habits that are aging us prematurely, do you think? The unhealthy habits.
So being sedentary, I guess, is the counteract, isn't it,
and I think even within that, like, we now have data to show that if you sit all day, like many of us do, I mean, myself included, my job is often just in front of my computer, and then go to the gym in the evening, even that 1 hour of being really active doesn't undo all the hours of sedentary. So it's there's this thing in the large bones of your legs, like they call it the gravitostat, which is kind of I guess the human body kind of had to determine what your body weight is to try and calibrate, because the body's always trying to find homeostasis, isn't it? It's trying to find like the sweet spot. And when you're moving around, or like, you know, crouching, squatting, even if you sit on the floor, you constantly have to move, because you can't always sit in the same position for so long. Your body can sort of tell where your body weight is. And then when you sit all day, you're not putting that force of gravity onto these large bones in your legs. And so your body's kind of confused. It's like, oh, it feels like you've lost weight because you're much lighter. And it affects the leptin and ghrelin, which are the hunger and satiety hormones, and affects how much you want to eat. And so potentially you can...
So it makes you want to eat more?
Yeah, it makes you want to eat more. So it's really crazy, isn't it? Yeah. It's kind of like an evolutionary mechanism that was really important, that now has been maladapted in the modern world, because we sit all the time. And even when you see, like, you know, certain tribal people, when they study how they live, like, they will squat, which is still like putting that kind of gravity sense on your legs. So.
Well, they say we're living like one of the most sedentary lifestyles at the minute. Is like, if you think of kids sitting down at school, people driving to work, sitting down all day at work, driving back, sitting on the sofa, watching TV. Oh, it's 100%. Like, it's mad, isn't it?
And it makes you feel crap. Like, if I have to be at my computer all day, obviously writing a book, there's a lot of sitting writing. Yeah. And sometimes when you have a day like that, all the trickle down negative behaviors, because you feel really disgusting, then you're going to eat really badly, you're not going to take care of yourself. Like, there's all these related behaviors. Cycle then, isn't it? But that's how, like, most of our lives are designed. And again, it comes back to, you know, if that's you, don't self-blame, just appreciate that this is how the world is, but you have enough agency to try and break it up. Like, I have a standing desk in my office. It's not perfect to stand instead of sitting, but it's better. You know, I will like have some kettlebells next to my desk. I will do like 10 minutes like across the day. I will go for walks. I will like make sure I break up the sitting. It's like, you just have to engineer your life, because no one's going to do it for you. Like, otherwise you're just kind of swept into the system that's really bad for your health.
Think about it, do you? Probably as well. So it's like, take the stairs instead of the lifts, and on the trains. It's like, we used to do that, didn't it? It's like walk up the escalators instead of just So what other factors impact our immune system? So obviously not being active.
Yes.
What other things are there that we're doing?
I mean, I think there was like the sort of, you know, classic things like obviously smoking, we know, but that's, you know, there's a lot of information around that. When it comes to diet, I think one of the biggest areas where we can find a source of this aging is in our gut microbiome, because we have this huge collection of microbes that live in our guts. It's like this ecosystem, and the gut barrier is only 1 cell thick. So that's like from your mouth all the way to the other end. It's sort of optimized for absorption of nutrients. And so it has to be really, really thin so that we can have that ability to absorb from our food. But that also means it's vulnerable. So you have a lot of your immune cells all along the gut barrier to sort of reinforce it and protect it. And those gut microbes are fine when they're living inside the gut, but when they transverse through the gut wall into the body, then your immune system sees them just like any other microbe. It's like, this is a danger sign. I'm going to turn on inflammation. So if that gut barrier is in any way compromised, you're going to have a sort of leaking of inflammation from the gut. And that happens actually every time we eat a meal, not to terrify people, but eating food is inflammatory. Not that we shouldn't eat, but because our bodies know this, it's optimized to deal with that inflammation really quickly and get things back to normal.
Is that like a protective mechanism?
Yeah, it's kind of because you need to absorb the nutrients, so the barrier becomes transiently permeable. We call it postprandial epithelial permeability. So it's basically post-eating temporary leaky gut. So it's to help with absorption, but it just means some of those bugs and whatever else is in there can go through and get into the bloodstream. But because it's kind of like a trade-off, like we have to eat, so this is the trade-off, and then the body knows how to deal with it. The problem comes is that we live in a world where people are eating constantly for nearly 18 hours a day in some cases. They actually did a smartphone study where they like got people to record what they're eating, and like literally from when they wake to when they go to bed, they were in this postprandial, so post-fed state, they call it.
So do you recommend leaving gaps between meals?
100%, because that's when your body is doing this kind of cleanup and making sure everything gets neat and tidy, and then it's waiting for the next meal to come. And there's another benefit from that as well, is that if you eat at the same time every day, your body's like, oh, it's like 1 o'clock. This is when we always eat. Starts producing digestive juices. The gut microbes are kind of like, oh yeah, this is the time we need to like get ready to respond to the food. And you know, you don't have those mechanisms running all the time because it would be a waste of energy. So you kind of have this circadian like alignment where your body learns to anticipate when you eat and optimize for that. And these days, people eat really erratically. We eat all the time, and we've kind of just then we go, oh, I've got really bad gut health. Like, what's wrong with my gut health?
And what food would you recommend for people for their gut health?
I think it depends what state your gut is in.
Okay, yeah.
I think, you know, you've just got to be mindful that like the ultra processed food is a problem, and more studies are coming out to tell us why that is. And it's not because of one single thing, like it's not the sugar or the fat or the whatever, it's the whole combination of food that's artificially made by thousands of scientists in a lab trying to make it so tasty, you know, even from the smell, the experience of opening the crisps, like everything. There is people whose job it is to make that so enticing that you will buy that and eat it again and again and again. There's preservatives that make it shelf stable for a really long time. There's different fillers and emulsifiers that give it a certain mouthful feel that, you know, it hits the bliss point on your tongue. And all of that is not friendly for that ecosystem inside our gut. You know, you
don't think of that, do you? When you eat
it's
food?
really
Crazy.
like, I think that's just one of the biggest problems. And when you look at the statistics, it's really like in the UK, I think compared to other European countries, we have the highest consumption of ultra processed food. I think up to 50% of what most adults are eating is considered ultra processed. And then it's higher in kids, because a lot of the marketing and like convenience foods for kids and things. So I think
even from toddlers, isn't it? It's like pouches. It's just convenient snacks and
if you think
packets.
of like a fruit pouch versus a piece of fruit, that pouch will have been pasteurized and it will still perhaps have some of the nutrients from the fruit, But versus an actual whole piece of fruit, you're also getting microbes on that fruit, even if you wash it. But these environmental microbes are like helpful for our gut. It's like we're exposing ourselves to the microbes in our environment, and that's helping with our gut health. So, you know, you kind of remove that and sanitize it and then put it in a pouch, and it's a different experience for your gut.
So true.
But it's all being marketed, and the thing is, parents see it as healthy. They think they're doing a good thing and it's convenient and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're just, it's all just money making.
It's all, And so I think stripping that all out and just getting back to cooking from scratch. And, you know, I think the strange thing is that deep down we all kind of know this.
Yeah.
But when I speak to friends, and a lot of them are parents, like they really struggle to do it. And it's weird. I've started to feel like we have more information at our fingertips. Like if you have a smartphone and you have AI, you can find out more about nutrition in seconds than ever before. But we've completely lost agency of our own bodies, and we will just mindlessly go into the fridge and like eat the stuff we know won't make us feel good, and mindlessly do things. And we're in a really weird time where I think we have to move beyond the age of information and into the age of how do we regain our agency. And again, for me, that came back to meditation, to being like, I need to create the mental space so that I don't mindlessly sleepwalk through my life. Like I can feel awake and present and aware in my own life, and tune into like the interoception in your body, like the feelings. Am I hungry? Am I full? Like, what do I need right now? Am I tired? Like, we kind of lost that conversation with ourselves. And I think this is really something that we have to think about.
Before we dive back into the podcast, let's talk about one of our favourite topics, hydration.
So many electrolyte products on the market right now are loaded with artificial sweeteners and flavours. And honestly, that's not what we want when we're trying to properly hydrate our bodies.
That's why we love True Hydration by Ancient and Brave. It's inspired by the natural electrolytes you'd find in coconut water, but with the added benefits of magnesium, potassium and prebiotic fibre, so it's hydration that actually supports your whole body.
The addition of chromium is also amazing for the blood sugar balancing effects. We have it first thing in the morning before coffee, and it's become a non-negotiable in our routine. It's also perfect when we're travelling or for a quick rehydrate after a sauna. The single-serve sachets make it so easy to take on the go.
We're big fans of Ancient and Brave because they blend ancestral wisdom with modern science, and that is exactly what Raise is all about.
But what sets Ancient and Brave apart isn't just their award-winning products, it's their commitment to sustainability. They're a B Corp and proud members of 1% for the planet, meaning that 1%, actually now 2%, of all their sales goes directly to environmental causes that protect our planet. So every time you buy from Ancient and Brave, you're not just investing in your well-being, you're contributing to a healthier planet too.
To find out more about Ancient and Brave, visit ancientandbrave.earth/planet and use the code RAISE for 20% off your first one-off purchase.
And being intentional, and I think even as a mum this year, because my eldest daughter, she has ARFID, so food's always been quite a tricky subject. But I made a point of being way more intentional, and actually there's so much joy in making food with your kids. You know, like really my 3-year-old, we've got kitchen knives, and she just loves doing that, and it actually becomes a nice experience when you reframe what the actual act is, instead of just grabbing or cooking or doing food for the sake of it. It's like make it part of an experience that they can enjoy and learn from as well.
Being really mindful. And what I never realized until I was much older is growing up on a farm, we didn't have a lot of money, and so everything was like doing stuff with what we had, and so we grew loads of our own food. My mum was trained in chef and cookery, and so worked in catering, and I kind of observed her, and I was always in the kitchen with her learning how to make things from scratch. And
that became your norm.
That was totally normal. And then I realized, I think when I moved to Glasgow when I was 18, not everyone had that experience. And some people were like, I don't know how to cook. How do you boil an egg? How do you, like really basic things. How do you chop an onion? And so we've not only kind of lost connection with where our food comes from, but if you give someone a box of vegetables, they would be like, what do I do with this? Like, how do I make it from that into like that beautiful meal? Like, so I think we need to make sure we do things like that with our kids, like be in the kitchen with them and then become more mindful and intentional. It's not like a chore, I have to feed my family. It's like I'm passing on this life skill. And I think in the book, that was something I really wanted to emphasize, is that as we get older, we're not becoming past it, we're gathering wisdom, and that wisdom needs to go back into the next generation and be like, don't make these mistakes. You know, we all know people who are like in their older years and in their younger years. We're all connected in some way to everyone in a different season of life, and we need to really be mindful of that we can all pass on something to each other.
So true. And we're evolving, aren't we? So it's like try and evolve in the right direction.
Well, I remember learning that evolution just literally meant change over time. Doesn't necessarily mean good
in a good way.
Exactly.
Well, do you know, and I remember we spoke about the film WALL-E. Have you seen it?
Yes, we speak about that a lot.
Because I think as a film that was so eye-opening in the way that it can go, isn't it? And it was actually really scary seeing that and being like, I have no interest in that being, you know, I think for so many people it kind of really...
It's convenience, isn't it? This whole convenience thing is sold to us. It's like, you know, you eventually have your own robot who will clean your house and cook for you, and then all of a sudden we need to move less and less and we'll just get bigger and bigger and communicate through our phones and not actually meet in person. It's like, it's actually subtly happening without us, and if we don't stop it, it could really go in that direction, you know?
But then the overriding narrative is like, look at all this cool stuff we've developed.
Exactly.
So we've evolved to like, you don't have to get up to change the channel, to like your mobile phone, like you don't even have to talk to the person next to you because you can like communicate through.
But luckily there are there is a movement.
Exactly.
People trying to go, so
and
we
I
just need to.
With everything becoming more decentralized, at least online, you can really find that voice and amplify it, and you realize, there are people that are just not willing to be swept along, and hopefully bring others along with us. And
Exactly.
So whilst we were talking about food, what does an immunologist eat? Like what's your diet like?
I guess I try like to follow in principle something like roughly like a Mediterranean diet.
Okay, nice.
If we want to go like, what does the research say? I think the research has really gone to like diet patterns rather than like focusing on foods, because we don't eat like a single food. We eat everything as a meal and together. And I think I also quite like the idea of maybe pretending I live in Italy or something. Everything with olive oil, because I'm obsessed with olive oil. And olive oil has this compound in it called olecanthal, which the molecular shape is really similar to ibuprofen, which is an anti-inflammatory, you know, that you can take if you had a headache or something. But they think that this is one of the reasons why you have this association between like the Mediterranean diet and some of the longest lived people. But the difference is, whereas ibuprofen sort of cuts off inflammation and doesn't allow the resolution part, because inflammation isn't just like turn on the fire, it's also stop the fire when necessary and resolve and bring everything back to normal. But unfortunately, we only really learned about the resolution phase of inflammation much later, so it hasn't quite kind of filtered down yet. But olecanthal and olive oil does help resolve inflammation. So whereas that's why I wouldn't really recommend taking ibuprofen for long-term health if you wanted to remove unwanted inflammation, because it's not going to do the job properly. But taking a little bit of olive oil every day, I think is the way.
There's that trend, isn't there, of drinking olive oil shots
in the morning.
And I was like, I want to try that, but now I just drizzle olive oil on my food.
I mean,
like,
you can shot it. I'd rather just
everywhere. And is there a particular brand that you like?
Not at all a specific one, but I like usually they're a bit more pricey, so but I'm willing to invest in these things. But the ones that really hit the back of the throat, like
spicy
bitter,
almost,
because that means they're higher in these compounds.
Okay.
So that's a good kind of barometer if you've got a good olive oil.
So what should people look out for on the label, for example?
Yeah, with extra virgin, single origin, usually from a country where they grow olives normally. So obviously in Europe Europe, there's a lot. Also some of the Middle Eastern countries too. And people get scared about cooking with it because of...
I was going to say, what about cold press? Should you try and buy cold pressed olive oil?
Yeah, I do, and organic if you can.
Okay.
And people get scared about cooking with it, but actually, because it's so high in these polyphenols, it stabilizes the oil even at high temperatures. And there's so much data showing that time and time again, this, the high compounds of polyphenols make it really suitable for all kinds of home cooking. So all the smoke point stuff, I feel like, is kind of outdated. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Amazing. Would you choose oil or butter to cook with?
Probably olive oil because I'm kind of obsessed with it, but I'm not against butter at all. Like, I love butter, and I feel like I grew up on butter. I was on a dairy farm, so
a dairy farm. Okay.
I literally wake up in the morning. My parents would be out like milking the cows, and my brother would be lighting the fire. We didn't have any central heating, so you had to light the fire before it was warm. And I'd go out into the dairy with this big jug and just like scoop milk out of this big tank. So it was like unpasteurized, and the cream on top was like that thick. And then I'd like make porridge and like make my breakfast.
God. Imagine like now if you were doing that, like, and you could share that on Instagram. It's like raw milk heaven, isn't it?
Oh my God, yeah.
As a child growing up,
absolute gold. Yeah. That's why you're so glowing.
So what are your thoughts on, because we're talking about like anti-aging and stuff, obviously you said you're kind of like anti-Brian Johnson and kind of taking things a bit more from a, I guess, natural, holistic lens.
I mean,
what do you think about the kind of like biohacking and longevity space?
I mean, I follow it, and I'm a scientist, right? So I get really excited about science. I love watching the field develop, and I love what people like Brian are doing, like self-experimentation and documenting that and doing stuff that, you know, is out of reach for most people because he's got a certain budget behind it. I guess I love watching that, but it lacks the soul that I feel like I need for myself.
Like what you were saying about meditation.
Like just being present in my life, like not always striving for things. Like I think that to me is a trap I could get into where I was sort of bypassing just
and
being
you can
present.
become controlling with it, and that's the danger, isn't it? Where you don't want to set, and then fearful, and then it's stress. So it actually then can have the opposite effect almost, can't it? When you're too controlling from a biohacking. Because I've even tried to kind of slow down a little bit with my rigid routines, because I'm like, is that actually benefiting me? You know, when you then become fearful of.
I think I know what you mean. And actually I was thinking about this recently. Like, I almost think you have to do that to then pull back. Which is something that I
think that's happening.
There is a bit of an anti.
Like we go in and like we have the enthusiasm, and there's so many things to try, and we build the routines and we try the different protocols, and you have to sort of experience that to then strip it back and be like, okay, what's
you almost
the true
get to
essence?
A level of burnout, don't you? To then think actually rest is really important, and all these really simple things are also as important.
Exactly.
And especially as women as well.
I think the biohacking space has felt really masculine for a long time, so it's sometimes hard to resonate. And then just, you know, as women, I think, you know, we're the producers of life. Like, we're kind of connected to the infinite, this sort of more sacred element of time where things are circular and seasonal. Like, we are cyclic beings, and whereas men, it's more like get from A to B, you know, with a purpose or a focus. And so there's kind of these two different like yin and yang of time and the approach to time that I think is needed. You need the balance, but I guess I needed to find a kind of soulful way to explore this topic, and that's a little
so
do you do any
do you have any kind of like typical biohacking gadgets or anything? Do you implement? I'd love to know what kind of stuff.
I'm obsessed with red light therapy. Oh my God, I do that all the time. Like, I think the science is cool. I think I'm just really convinced of it. You can combine it with meditation, and, you know, to protect your sleep. Like, I suffered with insomnia for like probably about 6 years just because of like traumatic stuff in my life. And so I have this real kind of like sleep is sacred, because it took me so long to figure out that relationship with sleep. And so I think then using light as medicine is just a really nice way to sort of expand your view of the inputs you need as a human. I'm quite intentional about like food and things. I don't know what would class as a biohack. I have to think. Methylene blue, I think, is really cool. Just for like, you know, when life gets a bit crazy, keep on top of mitochondrial health.
So let's talk about supplements, because I guess there's a lot of immune boosting supplements out there. And obviously there's some that are kind of like good advertising. Like, which ones do you recommend and what actually works?
It's so funny actually, because I am a supplement formulator, so I'm very much entrenched in that world and understand the regulations and what you can say in terms of advertising. I think traditionally immune supplements have factored around infection, so they classically have vitamin C and zinc inside, or vitamin D. And part of the reason for that is because within the UK and Europe, we have this what's called the EFSA framework of health claims. So if you put in like a 15% of the NRV of vitamin C, so the NRV is like your daily intake, so it's a very small amount, into a supplement, then it means you're allowed to, on the label, make claims about immune health because it's an authorized health claim. Even though the amount of vitamin C might be really small, there's like a cutoff where you're allowed to make this health claim. But then an orange has more vitamin C and no health claims, and it also contains citrus bioflavonoids, which help the absorption and the function of vitamin C. So it's kind of funny, like I always think immune health supplements look really outdated because they're like these sort of old-fashioned, like contains vitamin C and zinc for a normal functioning immune system. Like, of course, those are really important, but people forget maybe they can get those from their diet first, and that's probably better. I think in terms of dealing with like chronic inflammation and inflammaging, that's where we're going to see some cool innovations coming. And again, there's so many amazing botanicals that are great for inflammation. So like curcumin and turmeric is a classic one. I think in terms of more broadly, creatine is really important for immune health. So we've seen a kind of resurgence, a sort of renaissance in creatine research, whereas it went from being, you know, something that was used by athletes or to improve sports performance, to realizing that this is a substance that's used in all high energy cells, so the brain cells, the immune cells, and that, you know, we can benefit a lot, particularly women, because we have lower creatine stores. So by supplementing, we can bring that up, and that really helps with immune function as well. Omega-3 is a really big one. So if you're not eating oily fish, omega-3s are the sort of raw materials to make what we call pro-resolving mediators. And these are kind of the firefighters of inflammation. So these are helping with that pro-resolution phase of inflammation. I think in the UK, the average intake of oily fish is close to 0, which is extraordinary. And I think most people have an omega-3 index that is like below what is anywhere near healthy. So we're kind of sitting on, you know, this population of people who don't have the raw materials to extinguish the unwanted inflammation that is generated daily just by, you know, existing in the Western world. And so supplementing with omega-3s is really a great strategy.
I'm going to add that to the list.
I know. So which supplements do you take personally?
What do I take? I take collagen because I'm very convinced by the research. I know people get really like, you know, Marmite about collagen.
No, we love it.
I just see lots of people poo-pooing it online, and there's no research. I'm like, okay, do you want to just type into PubMed, like randomized controlled trials on collagen? One of the reasons I really enjoy collagen is actually more for the whole body benefits. Like I know people think about it as being for the skin, but collagen's the most abundant protein in the whole body. And it's not just your skin that contains collagen, but like the lining of your gut and the muscles and ligaments and bones and tendons. And so, you know, there's so much research on looking at things like injury prevention, particularly in women, because we have the hormonal changes that can cause our joints to become more lax, and that can put us at higher risk of injury during certain times of the month. And so collagen can help mitigate some of that to allow us to keep being active, which I think is really important.
I didn't know that.
There's also studies showing that it's really good for the gut integrity, because the gut is made of collagen too, and you know, collagen declines as we age, and so it can help keep that barrier really integral, which is important, as I mentioned earlier, for like unwanted inflammation. So collagen to me is like a whole body one. Taurine, I think, is coming through as being a bit like creatine. Like, you know, your stores decrease with age. You know, we sit about 70% saturated with creatine. And evolutionarily, I think that's because we used to always have an intake from diet, but these days people don't eat the right foods. So supplementing is really important. And I think taurine,
also our food just doesn't have the minerals
the same
and
nutrients. Yeah. So taurine's kind of similar to creatine, and it's a really good antioxidant. It's really good for cardiovascular health. Then CoQ10, which it often gets kind of overlooked because it's been around for a while, but actually that's
one of the... But this is the problem, isn't it? When things become trendy and then you take them and everyone's talking about it, but then actually the ones that, there's so many that are so important.
Yeah, so CoQ10's really, it's probably a really good one for like longevity, I'd say. Okay. And it's kind of like to keep it simple. I take magnesium. And I love sea buckthorn. I'm like obsessed. Yeah. So it's really rich in omega-7, which I think is like the next big omega. And omega-7 helps collagen do its job in the skin. So it's like good, glowy. Okay. Yeah.
Which sea buckthorn do you take?
The one from Ancient and Brave, actually, because I formulated it. It's got omega-7 together. Yeah.
I love it.
Sea buckthorn oil, and macadamia nuts are the only two dietary sources of omega-7. So it's really rare in the diet. Our bodies can synthesize it, but not enough. And then with age, that kind of declines anyway. So I think particularly for women, it's really good for hormonal health, for menopause, for like the dryness of your mucous membranes and things. So to me, it's like an untapped secret. I've been taking it for years. I'm obsessed. But
I've heard of it, but I've never taken it.
Yeah, get on the sea buckthorn.
Need to get some later. Which product is it in? Is it specifically a sea buckthorn?
Yeah, it's the soft gel, which has omega-3 as well. So I combined them both.
Nice.
Oh, she did. Yeah. I'm going to give that one a go.
Just take one.
Love that. Did you know that the shaky, anxious feeling you sometimes get from coffee isn't actually from the caffeine, but from the toxins in it?
Coffee is one of the most pesticide-sprayed crops in the world, and it's also one of the highest risk foods for mold and mycotoxins.
Not exactly what you want to sip first thing in the morning. That's why we drink Exhale coffee. It's organic, independently lab tested, and completely free from mold, mycotoxins, pesticides, and heavy metals.
Exhale is the first coffee in the UK to be specifically designed with your health in mind. It's antioxidant rich, high in polyphenols, and it doesn't just not make you feel bad, it actually makes you feel good.
We've genuinely noticed the difference. More focus, more calm energy, and none of that wired but tired crash.
So if you're someone who loves coffee but doesn't always love how it makes you feel, this could change everything.
Exhale is so confident that you'll love the taste as much as how it makes you feel that they're giving away free trial bags. They even cover the cost of shipping. Just head over to exhalecoffee.com/raise to claim yours.
So we touched on children, and I guess for anyone listening that's raising kids, what can we do to help their immune system be more resilient as they get older?
Yeah, just grew up on a farm and like
just take them to the farm,
expose them to all the germs and feed
get
them
them in the
milk.
mud.
But in lieu of being able to actually do that, we do know that there's certain sort of, I see it as like, what inputs do we need to be humans, and that needs to start from the beginning. So the first 3 years is where that microbiome is kind of being established, and so that starts obviously with the birth journey through the vaginal canal, and you get the seeding of the microbiome. So really the health of the mum's microbes on and around her body are going to give the child their sort of first inoculation of their own microbiome. And then this is kind of your life course health ally, that you then will keep and will shape along the life course. So it's really important. And then the first 3 years is kind of the window of opportunity before it becomes quite established and harder to change the overall ecosystem. So obviously birth route is important. Not everyone has a choice on how their child comes into the world. But one of the things that has come out in the research that might be more important than how a child is born is breast milk, because it contains these particular sugars inside that for a long time they were like, why is this in breast milk? It doesn't make any sense. Like, it's not really being used as food for the baby. But now they realize that it's there because it's food for the microbes. And it's the first fertilizer to really pull out the good microbes and establish that community.
Of course there's a purpose.
There's a reason. Like, evolution just knew, like Mother Nature was like, we've got this. So I think that, we need, my kids were born in Switzerland, and they actually were born premature, because they're twins and they quite often come early, and they were like blue lighted across the city into like an incubator, and I was like left in this bed, and my blood pressure was crashing, and like they wouldn't let me leave until it sort of stabilized. It was all very traumatic, but I just remember this big German nurse coming in with this like industrial sized breast pump and like plunking it down next to me and being like, you need to pump, and like sticking it on me, and that was like the first 6 weeks of their life was like attached to this giant breast pump, and then I would use a syringe to like feed them through a nasogastric tube because they're too small, because when they're premature they don't have the sucking reflex. So but the nurses there were so supportive, like in Switzerland, and I think with friends in the UK who've had children, I think it's quite a different experience if you do struggle with breastfeeding. And I think if a lot of, if we had more education and more parents were informed about how important breast milk is for not just the health of your child there and then, but potentially when it's 50, 60 years old, there might be different ways of approaching breastfeeding that, would support women to do it. Because it's really hard. Women have to go back to work and they might have other children, and it's stressful and it's painful, and you get, problems. And I just think that, every child, like, it's a birthright to have a healthy microbiome from the start of your life, and we're doing women and future generations a disservice by not like supporting them to do that.
So for mums who, for example, I didn't know what I knew, a lot of my education came actually after I had Ava 12 years ago, and looking back I wish I knew now what and how important my diet was, for example, before before conception, during pregnancy, but I didn't. So for mothers who are already out of that stage, what can they do to help their children?
I mean, to be honest, I didn't know at the time. I was just like, this nurse just gave me this breast pump.
Because you have a guilt. I feel like I haven't, real guilt looking back on that period.
But look at what you've done since, like, I think that.
And also it wasn't like you're being very hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Because you were better than probably
it's hard when you...
a majority...
No, like...
I used to eat like super noodles when I was pregnant. Like, I was pretty bad.
Did you? Didn't.
Yes, I did. I'm not
a secret. I had no idea.
Oh, 100%. I was not. With Ava, not with Sophie.
No,
that's when the health journey started. But it was only really after I'd given birth to Ava that I thought...
because she was here before. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I was, I was still reasonably healthy, but I didn't have... so I look back and I feel guilt because I wish I'd known, and had the minerals and all the nutrients.
But that's
and everything.
the thing. I think, we just have to do our best from whenever we have that sort of waking up moment, and that probably came before your second child.
But then I was vegan, so I did the so it's weird how it's kind of rolled, and I even then feel guilt for that because I feel like she might not have got the minerals.
Look how amazing they are now,
and like healthy now.
The weird thing about having...
We just beat ourselves up, don't
we? It's like a mother thing, isn't it? We're just sort of programmed to do this. We have all this like amazing data, and we can be like, oh, this is so important. But then, we have to apply it to real life and be like, it's not a predetermined destiny. If you don't breastfeed and you had a C-section, like that does not mean you have like handed your child some fate. Like it's just, we now know it's really important in ways that we didn't understand before. And now, all of the stuff that happens afterwards is also really important. Exposure to germs in other ways, like not over sanitizing your house. That's coming through is really important. So allergies are the biggest thing, I think, with children that we see this sort of huge uptick in allergies. And that's because the barriers of our body, so the lining of the airways, the lining of the gut, the skin, and how they're exposed to environmental pollutants, but also microbes, all of the different things we come up against. Those are sort of training and educating the immune system to calibrate it properly, because it's this new blank canvas coming into the world. And, think about the amazing way that you care for your kids now and the exposures that you give them. Like, all of that is so nourishing for their immune system. And I think, we don't know what we don't know at the time. It's just, sometimes it's hard to let go of that and just, accept that at least, there was a moment where you became...
Woke up.
Yeah.
How important is nature for the immune system? I guess even in thinking about kids, like getting them out in fresh air.
So
and
important.
Even for us.
So important in so many ways. I think we have to remember that we are nature, like we're not separate from it, and just to go and be in nature and have that sense of awe, and sort of time slows down and you're just really like able to immerse yourself in something that's bigger than you. Nature kind of is just constant cycle of birth and death, which I think kind of puts a different lens on our own mortality, really. In terms of children, there's a really cool study in Sweden where they took a nursery and they did a kind of intervention where they made it more green. So the kids, obviously nursery age kids, they're crawling around, they're putting everything in their mouth, they're just being exposed to more dirt and germs and trees and plant life. And then they looked in their blood and they measured different markers of the immune function over a number of months. And they saw amazing improvements in how the immune system was functioning, reductions in unwanted inflammation, more immune regulation. So that's helping prevent from developing allergies and stuff, just from a simple intervention, like cool. Get them away from like a concrete area into a more green area. I just think that's just, plants have their own microbiomes. We're breathing that in, we're swallowing that. That's helping seed our own ecosystems inside. There's particular microbes that are found in like the dirt that your vegetables are grown in that we now know play really important roles in our immune system. And that's not to say that you should deliberately be eating dirt, but just by gardening or growing veg or going to buy it from a farmer's market, you're exposed in a very natural way that we sort of don't even realize, which is giving that constant little signal to your immune system that helps it calibrate properly.
Love that. Okay, so Jenna, let's hit you with some quick fire questions. What is one daily habit you swear by for immune health?
Oh, I'm going to have to say meditation. Closely followed by movement.
Yeah, I thought you'd say that.
One habit that secretly accelerates aging that people overlook.
Oh, stress, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so less stress. That's why meditation's so
good,
right? Okay.
Matcha or coffee?
Ooh, that is tough. Probably coffee, but black, double espresso.
Oh, is that how you have it? Okay.
If you could bust one immunity or anti-aging myth forever, what would it be?
Oh, for immunity, it's just like, can we just stop assuming that the immune system is just for getting rid of infections in winter when it's like a seasonal cold? Like it's all the time. It's literally your health ally across your life course. It's so the limiting factor in your life if you don't look after it.
That's so true. What's your go-to breakfast?
Oh, at the moment, it's going to sound so weird.
No,
like scrambled eggs, edamame, seaweed, and then like tomatoes and whatever vegetables I have in.
Yum.
Yeah, it's really
your favourite.
Yeah, I feel like everyone has a go-to. It's one of those things when you wake up in the morning, it's like the meal that it's like
and
you have a go-to.
I keep the edamame in the freezer, so like I just buy them frozen. So it's like it's always really cold, and then just whatever vegetables. Sometimes put frozen blueberries in. I'm just like,
do you with eggs?
Yeah.
Do you? Okay, that was the weird one. I thought when you said this is weird, I was like, that's not weird. That's Does it work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to it now. Okay. I think it's when you create.
I might give that a go, and I'm like, Jenna, you're full of.
I feel like there's some random ones doing even like mince and yogurt.
But I don't think that's that random.
No, but it is for some people. Like
even within like Persian culture, they often
they
incorporate yogurt with a lot of their
oh my God,
meals.
I love Persian
I feel like yogurt works so well with me.
I love yogurt.
Yogurt and salad and yogurt and meat. Oh my God,
everything.
So good.
What's your favourite wellness tool?
Oh, probably my red light box.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say that.
So we're getting
Do you
quite
have
into
like
the
a
gua sha
box,
now.
or is it for your face? What
I
do you
have it's the
like
demi bon charge one.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I love
which
that
I think is a good size.
It
and
is.
People say, oh, should you get the mask? I'm like, well, it kind of does the same
same.
job.
Yeah,
And then you can
100%.
like, if you want to, recover from like back or legs or whatever, you can move it around. So to me, it's perfect.
And also it's portable, isn't it? Because the panels can be quite big. And
Yeah,
you don't
exactly.
have space at home, but then
Yeah.
the demi's good.
Yeah.
I agree. And a book that has impacted or changed your life.
Oh, there's so many. I would say quite recent book was The Courage to Be Disliked, which is just a very sweet little read. About sort of philosopher and a young guy, and it just kind of made a lot of sense in my mind. And I think everyone should read it, and everyone should realize that courage is a real tipping point energetically. If you have the courage to sort of break out of sort of low vibe mindsets and narratives about yourself, like the world can really expand.
Love that.
Jenna, thank you so much.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. I actually want to listen back.
Yeah.
I love this. It's, exactly. Where we can
supplements and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much.
So where can people find you on Instagram?
Yeah, most of my activities on Instagram. I haven't quite managed any other social media yet, but it's my name is Dr._Jenna _Macciochi. Come and say hi.
And we'll be sure to link your book.
We
Brilliant.
will.
Thank you.